Welcome to the Explainer. When you watch a collegiate basketball game, the action just moves at a blistering pace, doesn't it? It's a total blur of motion, strategy, and pure athleticism. But today, we're going to freeze the frame. We are taking a seemingly mundane, basic fundamental of the game, the bounce pass, and breaking it all the way down. We're going to see exactly why it's actually this high-stakes, biomechanical marvel. We're talking about an incredible feat of human physics disguised as a simple pass. So what really makes a simple pass so geometrically and physically complex? I mean, when a college player executes a successful bounce pass, it looks like one fluid, instantaneous motion. Boom, it's done. But under the microscope, what you were actually witnessing is a rapid-fire sequence of 9 distinct, absolutely critical micro-events, all happening in less than a second. It's crazy. If any one of these 9 steps is even slightly off, the entire pass fails. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for the anatomy of this play. 1. Building the perfect foundation. 2. Vision, tactics, and momentum. 3. The kinetic chain of execution. 4. The 2/3 bounce geometry. And finally, number 5. Follow through and game recovery. Starting right off with part 1. Building the perfect foundation. This is all about establishing stability and grip before the ball ever even moves. See, long before the pass even begins, the energy, stability, and potential for that pass have to be created from the ground up. To really understand this foundation, we have to talk about tactile feedback. Basically, it's the physical sensation received through the fingertips that lets a player accurately gauge grip, pressure, and ball control. This isn't just about, holding the ball. It's a highly analytical transfer of information from the basketball surface straight into the player's nervous system. And getting that proper grip, it dictates absolutely everything that happens next. So, how do you actually optimize that feedback and build your base? Well, it starts with the first 2 micro-events of our 9-step sequence. Step 1 is adopting the correct ready position. A player doesn't just stand there flat-footed. They get into a balanced athletic stance. We're talking feet about shoulder-width apart, knees slightly flexed, hips lowered, and body weight evenly distributed right across the balls of the feet. And here's the kicker. The non-dominant foot is positioned just slightly in front of the dominant foot. This creates a really stable base of support, readying the whole body for forward momentum while keeping the head upright to scan the court. Then we hit step 2, gripping the basketball correctly. Both hands go on either side of the ball, fingers spread comfortably to maximize control. You tuck the elbows close to your torso and let the ball sit right around chest height. The energy starts down in the legs, transfers up a rock-solid core, and finishes at a highly specific grip. Now, what's really interesting about this is why a collegiate player has to maintain contact with the ball using just their fingertips. They actually leave a deliberate, slight gap between their palms and the surface of the basketball. Why do that? Well, it goes right back to that tactile feedback we just talked about. The fingertips are packed with incredible nerve density. Holding the ball this way improves feedback and control, which directly translates to way greater accuracy and precision during the release. Plus, keeping those elbows close to the torso ensures that when the force is transferred, it's super efficient, preventing any kind of unnecessary movement that could throw off your passing accuracy. Moving right along to part 2, vision, tactics, and momentum, the mental calculation and the physical shift forward. This right here is where the player's brain dictates the tactical selection and the body shifts its weight directly into the pass. That brings us to step 3 of our anatomy. Before the ball moves an inch, the player has to identify the receiver and pick the perfect passing lane. When you're choosing between a bounce pass and a direct chest pass, it's a split-second tactical calculation. Think of the defense as a physical obstacle. They're the problem. The passer has to anticipate the movement of teammates and opponents alike. So the bounce pass is chosen specifically as the ultimate tactical solution when a direct chest pass runs a really high risk of being intercepted. It uses the floor to safely route the ball right under the outstretched arms of a defender. It's just rapid-fire decision-making that cuts down the risk of turnovers and keeps possession totally secure. Once that tactical choice is locked in, we trigger step 4, stepping towards the target. The player takes a controlled step forward, using the foot opposite to their dominant passing hand. So if you're a right-handed player, you step forward with your left foot. As they do this, their body weight transfers seamlessly from the back foot to the front foot. Now, why step with the opposite foot? It's simple physics, really. It engages the much larger muscles of the lower body to generate force, rather than just relying on upper body strength. Imagine trying to push open a massive heavy door with your feet perfectly together and only using your arms. It's incredibly weak, right? Totally unbalanced. Now imagine stepping into that push with one foot forward, driving your entire weight through your legs. That weight transfer is exactly what gives a pass its explosive power, balance, and directional accuracy. All right, part 3, the kinetic chain of execution, pushing lower body power through the arms and right out the fingertips. We are now moving into the most explosive phase of our micronarrative. All that momentum has been stored up in the lower body, and now it's finally unleashed. This happens in steps 5 and 6. In step 5, the player extends both arms forward toward the target while maintaining absolute control of the basketball. If you watch the elbows, they move from that flexed, tucked-in position to full extension in one smooth, coordinated action. It is controlled. It's never rushed. It keeps the ball on a strict, intended line. This tight coordination of the shoulders, elbows, and wrists is what absolutely guarantees consistent accuracy. Then, in a fraction of a second, step 6 hits, releasing the ball with a wrist flexion. At the exact point of release, the wrists snap forward and the fingers point directly toward the intended target. So the crucial point is exactly what happens with the thumbs here. During the wrist snap, they naturally rotate downwards following the release. It's honestly amazing how much control is generated by just the thumbs. This highly specific mechanical motion is what generates additional speed and, most importantly, backspin on the basketball. That backspin is definitely not just for show. It acts as a stabilizing force, ensuring that the ball is easily controllable after it forcefully strikes the floor. Part 4, the 2/3 bounce geometry. Basically, the rapid-fire math of the perfect pass. This is where we really start looking at the basketball player not just as an athlete, but almost as a mathematician performing live calculus out there on the hardwood. The magic fraction is 2/3, and this brilliantly illustrates step 7. The basketball must strike the floor at precisely 2/3 of the total distance between the passer and the receiver. The player is visually isolating this exact fraction of distance on the court in real time. If the ball hits at, say, 1/2 the distance, it bounces way too high and just hangs in the air. If it hits at 3/4, it skids low and hits the receiver right in the shins. 2/3 is the absolute perfect geometric sweet spot. Listen to this quote from the breakdown. Correct placement makes it more difficult for defenders to intercept while providing the receiver with an easier catch. That 2/3 mark, combined with the force applied and the backspin we got from the wrist snap, determines the flawless trajectory of the ball after contact with the floor. Getting this specific geometry right is literally the only way to ensure the ball rises naturally and perfectly to approximately the receiver's waist or chest. That allows them to catch the ball effortlessly without ever breaking their stride toward the basket. Okay, let's move to part 5 and see how this all builds into the follow-through and game recovery. Completing the cycle and returning to the action. The pass isn't over just because the ball has left the player's hands. Steps 8 and 9 close out our anatomy and get us right back into the live action. Step 8 is the follow-through. After the release, the arms must remain extended towards the receiver. The wrists stay relaxed, fingers pointing exactly at the target. A player actually has to fight the instinct to immediately pull their arms back. Why? Because holding that extension promotes consistency and ensures directional accuracy. It literally guides the ball's final path. And as a neat bonus, holding this form allows coaches on the sideline to visually evaluate the quality of the player's passing technique. Then, instantly, we hit step 9, recovery. The player immediately returns to that balanced athletic stance we started with way back in step 1. Basketball is a continuous, dynamic game. Actions occur in quick, rapid succession. By recovering into a ready position, the player is instantly prepared to move into space, receive a return pass, support a teammate, or, transition back to defense if the ball gets stolen. So let's pull all of this together into a concise, actionable summary of the 9-step masterclass we just took. You start with a balanced athletic stance and your eyes locked on the target. You ensure tactile feedback with a solid fingertip grip. You transfer your weight by stepping to the receiver. You use a smooth arm extension, finishing with a really sharp wrist snap for backspin. You aim your geometry perfectly at the 2/3 distance mark. You hold your full follow-through to ensure accuracy, and finally, you enact an immediate recovery right back into a ready position. 9 complex micromechanics perfectly synchronized and executed in under a single second. It's totally wild. I want to leave you with a final thought today. How will understanding these 9 micromechanics completely change the way you analyze the next basketball game you watch? Seriously, the next time you see a point guard fire a bounce pass through heavy traffic, you won't just see a simple pass anymore. You're going to see the fingertip grip, the weight transfer, that crucial backspin, and the perfect 2/3 geometry. You now have a completely new, highly analytical perspective on one of the game's greatest fundamentals. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep analyzing, and I'll see you next time.